Part 2. Conservative investors sleep well. All of my business life, I have believed that the success of my own business or any business depends on following the principles of 2 I's and an H. These principles are integrity, ingenuity, and hard work. I would like to dedicate this book to my 3 sons in the belief that Arthur and Ken are following the principles of the 2 I's and an H in businesses very similar to mine, as is Don in one that is quite different. Introduction. While these things are hard to measure precisely, indications are overwhelming that only once before in this century has the morale of the American investor been at anything like the low ebb that exists as these words are being written. The well-known and much publicized Dow Jones Industrial Average is an excellent indicator of the day-to-day change in stock market levels. However, when a longer period is under consideration, this average may mask rather than reveal the full extent of the injuries suffered by many who have held common stocks in the recent past. One index that purports to show what has happened to all publicly traded common stocks, but that does not weigh each stock issue by the number of shares outstanding, shows the average stock in mid-1974, down 70% from its 1968 peak. Faced with this kind of loss, large groups of investors have acted in completely predictable ways. One group has pulled out of stocks completely. Yet many corporations are doing surprisingly well. In an environment where more and more inflation appears inevitable, properly selected stocks may be far less risky than some other placements that appear safer. There is an even larger group that is of particular interest, people who have decided that from now on we will act more conservatively. The usual rationale here is to confine purchases only to the largest companies, the names of which at least are known to almost everyone. There are probably few investors in the United States and almost none in the Northeast who do not know the names Penn Central and Consolidated Edison or the nature of these companies' services. By conventional standards, Penn Central some years ago and Consolidated Edison more recently were considered conservative investments. Unfortunately, often there is so much confusion between acting conservatively and acting conventionally that for those truly determined to conserve their assets, this whole subject needs considerable untangling, which should start with not one definition but 2. 1. A conservative investment is one most likely to conserve, that is, maintain purchasing power at a minimum of risk. 2. Conservative investing is understanding of what a conservative investment consists and then, in regard to specific investments, following a procedural course of action needed properly to determine whether specific investment vehicles are, in fact, conservative investments. Consequently, to be a conservative investor, not one but 2 things are required either of the investor or of those whose recommendations he is following. The qualities desired in a conservative investment must be understood. Then a course of inquiry must be made to see if a particular investment so qualifies. Without both conditions being present, the buyer of common stocks may be fortunate or unfortunate, conventional in his approach or unconventional, but he is not being conservative. It seems to me of overriding importance that confusion on matters such as these be swept aside for all time to come. Not only stockholders themselves but also the American economy as a whole cannot afford ever again to have those who make a sincere effort to understand the rules suffer the type of bloodbath recently experienced by this generation of investors. A bloodletting exceeded only by that which another generation experienced in the Great Depression some 40 years earlier. America today has unparalleled opportunities for improving the way of life for all its people. It certainly has the technical knowledge and the know-how to do so. However, to do these things in the traditional American way will require some genuine re-education as to the basic fundamentals for a great many investors as well as for many of those in the investment industry itself. Only if many more investors come to feel financially secure, because they truly are secure, will there be a reopening of the markets for new stock issues. That will enable companies legitimately requiring additional equity funds to be in a position to secure them on a basis conducive to going ahead with new projects. If this does not happen, all that is left is to try to go ahead with what needs to be done in the way that, both here and abroad, has always proven so costly, wasteful, and inefficient by government financing, with management under the dead hand of bureaucratic officialdom. For these reasons, I believe that the investors' problems of today should be met head-on and forthrightly. In an attempt to deal with these problems in this book, I have leaned heavily on the counsel of my son, Ken, who contributed the title as well as many other matters, including part of the basic conception of what lies herein. I cannot adequately acknowledge his assistance in this presentation. This book is divided into 4 distinct sections. The first deals with the anatomy, if the word may be used, of a conservative stock investment as delineated in definition number 1. The second analyzes the part played by the financial community, the mistakes, if you will, that helped produce the current bear market. This critique was not intended merely to throw rocks but to point out that similar errors can be avoided in the future and that certain basic investment principles become clear when the mistakes of the recent past are studied. The third section deals with the course of action that must be taken to qualify as conservative investing as delineated in definition number 2. The final section deals with some of the influences rampant in today's world that have caused grave doubts in the minds of many as to whether any common stock is a suitable means for preserving assets. In other words, whether for anything other than as gambling vehicles common stocks should be considered at all. This book will, I hope, throw light on whether the problems that helped produce the recent bear market have created a condition where stock ownership is just a trap for the unwary, or whether, as in every prior major bear market in U.S. history, they have created a magnificent opportunity for those with the ability and the self-discipline to think for themselves and to act independently of the popular emotions of the moment. Philippa Fisher, San Mateo, California.